right, and welcome to the TSG Multimedia video podcast for December 1st, 2012. And this is John sitting with
Dan.
As usual. This is a Caboose, right?
Yes, this is actually my Burlington Northern Caboose that I've been working on, and I've had it on the podcast before when it was not quite this done. Right now I'm in the process of painting it. It's not quite completely done yet as far as painting goes, but it's close. But I wanted to talk about it because I put a picture of it before it was painted on the Facebook page, and somebody was asking questions about how I did it and could I do a how-to. And the problem is that I didn't really do any work in progress photos. I hadn't been thinking along those lines when I was working on it. So I just thought, instead of that, maybe what I do is just talk about it now here on the podcast a little bit and kind of show what I did.
Makes sense.
Anyway, it's an Atlas wide vision caboose, and this is HO scale, and this one's been modified quite a bit, and there's basically three components, as you can see. There's the cupola and the body, and then the underside and ends. So those are the major assemblies, and so I had to do work on all of those. This unpainted cupola is the stock cupola off a Atlas Caboose, and this is the modified one. So there's two things about it that are different. One is that it's taller, and I did that by adding HO scale 6-inch wide strips to the bottom of all the edges, just laminated them on there and then filled the seams, and that raised the height, 6 inches, and that looked about right.
6 scale inches.
6 scale inches, right? That's what I mean. With little like I said, with little strips like this, and that raised it so that it looked correct when I was looking at photographs. I don't have any actual measurements, but I'm pretty sure that it's pretty close. And the other thing was the shape of the windows.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could see the windows look different too.
Yeah, the stock Atlas Caboose, I think, is modeled on a Reading Railroad prototype and later Conrail. We took over those cars, and they're not real typical. Unfortunately, they didn't pick seems like they didn't pick the most common version, because there's some things that are odd about those cars, like the shorter cupola, that a lot of the rest of the railroads didn't have. So I would have thought Atlas would have wanted to take the most typical version. But anyway, be that as it may, I had to change the shape of the windows because the BN windows are more square, and I basically cut them out, and then I made new frames for them out of styrene, and they're painted green right now. They need to be silver. I haven't gotten around to painting them yet, but that changed the shape of the window to, again, looking at photographs to match them.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and I noticed that you added some rivets or bolts or something to the outside too. How the hell do you do that?
That's actually Archer decals.
Okay.
They make Archer makes these neat decal rivets and weld seams and all kinds of other stuff that are actually three-dimensional. I don't know what it is. They fuse some kind of a resin or something onto the decal paper, and you apply it just like you'd apply any other decal, only you apply it to the unpainted model, and then you paint over it.
Yeah. So,
and when you do that, you have rivets. So the real window frames actually have rivets too, so that's why I did it that way. And I think the effect is pretty good. I think it'll look even better once they're painted.
Yeah, so let me get this straight, though. So you took something like that same styrene stuff that you were just holding.
Yeah, this is thinner around the windows.
But you had to, cut all this out and round the edges and,
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Four times.
Well, I think we made a comment last time about how it might be better just to get a brass
This is why I started to say that.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense now. That's crazy, man. That's a lot of work.
This is just the cupola, by the way. While we're here, I also added these grab irons on the top. Those are just some brass wire.
Let's see if we can kind of... There they are.
Yeah, and then this antenna is a Details West part.
Wow. I mean, that is some major detail. I mean, look at this thing. The difference is striking.
So I made quite a few modifications on the body, the most obvious of which was I got rid of the windows. And I did that by taking pieces of sheet plastic and cutting them to fit in the openings, and then gluing them in there, and then sanding everything flush and puttying it.
Wow.
And then I had to do several iterations of test painting with some primer and then sanding to make sure that the seams are actually filled. I've been doing that lately because sometimes what you think is filled when the model's just bare plastic really isn't, because there'll still be a crack there that you can't see with your eye, but when you paint it, it reveals it. So another thing I did was the roof on the BN Caboose has these panel details on all the panels, not just, most of them, because the stock Caboose has a blank area here.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I got rid of the smoke jack because it's in the wrong place for the BN car anyway, and I had to cut out pieces of styrene to these shapes and file the edges and laminate them onto the roof.
Oh, wow. Do you know, the amazing part about that is looking at it, I can't tell that's not that. I mean, it looks like it was made that way.
Yeah, I was glad that I only had to do one panel.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, I guess if you had a spare one of these, couldn't you like cut out the whole thing and just like plop it on there somehow? Or
yeah, maybe. Although that
would be
opens up
too.
Another can of worms of pain.
So where does the smoke thingy go on this one?
It actually goes up here on the BN car.
So you just haven't done it yet, or
no? I haven't. I have the smoke jack as a separate part. I'll add it later when I'm almost finished with the whole thing.
Wow, and I see you put on some little handle things.
Yeah, and these little grab irons are a really funny shape, and it took me a long time to figure out how to actually make those.
Oh, you made that too?
Yes, I made those out of brass wire,
yeah.
And those were a pain just to roll them round like that and bend them. I actually rolled them out around the tip of a small jeweler's screwdriver.
Wow.
And it was really kind of hard to get them all. I wasted a few before I got 4 that looked good. So that was a pain.
These are actually pieces of like U-channel, styrene U-channel, because I looked at the pictures of the Caboose and it has these little bump outs on either side, and I'm not sure what the purpose of those is, but they're on the BN Caboose, so I put them on the model.
There's like little 2x4s or something stuck to it.
Yeah. Also, again, deleting one of the windows.
Yes, I noticed that.
And on this end only of the Caboose, there's also this little, I think it's a fuel oil fill or something.
Oh, that square thing?
Yeah, and I couldn't find a detail part for that, so I actually had to scratch build that little thing.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
No.
And it looks like a little light casting up there too, right?
Yeah, now there was actually, I actually chopped this one off. There was a light casting at the top of the door on the stock Caboose. And I cut that off because the BN Caboose didn't have the light down there. And what I actually did was the end railing piece has a little top part, and I actually glued that onto this Caboose, and then I had to cut the railings apart anyway. So I then cut that piece down so it matched the shape that I was seeing in the photos of the BN Cabooses. And actually that light casting that I cut off, I saved it, and I glued it back on here, which is where the light is on the BN Caboose.
Wow.
And I actually have drilled this for a fiber optic strand so that I can eventually light it.
That was my next question.
Yeah, and I also had to make these little gusset plates on the end from some styrene.
Wow.
So
yeah, I can see that they're flat on this side, and on this side they're like these little curvy thingies.
Yeah, well, that side is missing. It's missing. Well, it would look different with the end piece on it.
Yeah.
But, it's anyway. So there's quite a bit of work, and actually, these windows on the end were the hardest ones to do because it's such a little tight space, and if trying to fill seams and sand stuff without destroying all the rest of the detail is pretty hard.
Yeah.
So that was a lot harder than doing the ones on the sides. On the undersides of the car, there were 2 major things that I did, and one was the steps, and the other was the cushion coupler pocket. To construct the steps, I used a kit from Moloco, and they sell this kit which comes with different types of steps. There's enough to actually do several cars. Now this is a different pattern This is a round hole pattern, and this is a slotted pattern that I used on the car. But anyway, this is basically what you get, and there's these end platforms which go here basically, and then there's these steps themselves, and there's also some risers which I don't have on this piece. I'm not sure where they are, but those are the vertical pieces between the steps. Now, to do that, I had to cut out the original steps, and then I also had to reshape the ends, because I don't know if you can see, but the ends on this car are more slanted, and this one they sort of have this square piece on top, and then they go down, and the angle's different. So I had to refile them to shape, and then I had to assemble all of the steps and then glue them between. And keep in mind that after I did this, because I also had to cut this piece off because it's too long and it was also in the way for something else, which I'll talk about in a minute. So this basically means that this whole piece became loose. It fell off. Oh. And so there's like all these loose little pieces that you have to glue together and try to keep them straight. And if I had to do this again, like on a real staircase, I've noticed that there's a support underneath usually that has a sawtooth kind of a pattern, and the steps mount on that. And I think if I was going to do this again, I would probably make some of those for the model steps out of little strips of plastic or something, because there's really nothing to support this. So I was trying to get them all together and straight, and that was a real pain, let me tell you.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, and even as it is, they're not quite perfect. So I did the best I could with it. So that was pretty hard. And the other thing I did was to add a Details West coupler pocket like this one. This is how they come in the package. But to do that, because I don't know if this is apparent, but this is an offset shank coupler, which means that the coupler itself is higher than the shank instead of the shank being in the middle. And that's because this coupler box in the stock Atlas Caboose is too low. And if you put a regular coupler in there, the height is ridiculously low. So,
but you could have a lowrider Caboose.
Well, it won't. Yeah, but it won't work with anything else, and the trip pin would be in the ties. So it just would, so I didn't want to use an offset shank coupler if I'm going to go to all the trouble to try to make it look correct, because they really don't. Real railroads don't have those, I don't think. So somebody will probably write me in and correct me now, but that's okay.
Maybe the Reading Railroad had them.
Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, so the basic problem is to mount this Details West coupler box, you can't just sling it under here because it'd be way too low. So what I actually had to do was cut the floor out around it.
Forget it.
And set it into the floor so that the top of the coupler box was actually level with the top of the floor. And then I also had to figure a way to mount that so it would be strong when it's in a train. So I had to do some finagling on the underside to make that happen. And then I put the little Moloco platform over it to hide
about
it.
6 tubes of glue, right? For this project?
I don't know. And then, of course, because the end railings weren't anything, on the BN car weren't anything like the stock ones, and also because I'd modified the roof. Like I said, I cut this piece off and glued it to the roof and then reshaped it. And these little panels are different sizes on the BN car and everything else. So I ended up essentially cutting all of the little railing parts out, then cutting the little panels off, and gluing these pieces. I also removed the cast-on grab irons and put freestanding ones.
But those blobs are grab irons.
Yeah, and then of course I added an uncoupling lever also, and this little doohickey here is I don't know what the real thing is. It's some kind of airline, I think, but I couldn't find a casting for that. So this is actually a leftover piece from a piece of piping intended for a locomotive air reservoir.
Wow.
But I just stuck it upright, and it looks close enough to what's supposed to be there that I think. Anyway, so I had to glue the brake wheel and these things onto here, and then all of these upright pieces are brass wire that I soldered together.
Oh, wow.
And of course, and then had to assemble, and they actually, on the underside of the roof, there's actually corresponding holes that these will fit into.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So, anyway, to make a long story short, this was a monumental pain. And that's why I said, I think if I had to do another BN Caboose, I think I'll just buy one that's made out of brass and just paint it and be happy, because it was a ridiculous amount of work to do this.
Well, like I said though before, isn't part of the whole modeling thing like solving the problems and figuring it out?
Yeah, it is.
So,
I'm not sorry I did one, but I don't think I'll be doing two.
So as much of a pain as it is, it'll probably be worth it because you'll be able to go, look what I did.
Yeah. So anyway, maybe I'll have the Caboose on again when it's totally finished, and we can see it, with the decals and all the paint and lights and whatever else.
Wow.
Oh, the other thing I was going to mention was I did actually break down and buy some Ather and Genesis trucks for it. Because last time that I had it on, I think I was talking about using some wipers some aftermarket electrical wipers on the trucks.
I don't remember.
Yeah, well, that's what I did, and I had fitted those with the stock trucks, and that works, but they were noisy, and I couldn't get them to stop being noisy. They made this sort of scraping noise as it.
Oh, I do remember.
As it
we
was
were talking
rolling
about
along.
that for the DCC pickup, right?
Yeah, and it was bugging me a lot. So the Athearn trucks are now available as a separate part. And the cool thing about them is they're already wired, or they already have electrical pickup built into them.
Oh, so you don't have to deal with those things?
Right, and they also have this neat axle generator detail mounted on them, which I haven't been able to find a part for that either. And I wasn't really looking forward to having to build one of those.
Well, now you don't have to.
Yeah, so
Wow.
I don't know if maybe somebody makes a casting for it, but I haven't been able to find one. So anyway.
The ironic thing about all this is that you're going to have a great looking Caboose, and it's funny because people don't even use Cabooses anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Did they in the 90s, your modeling
Not too
era?
well,
they were on the way out, right?
They would use them once in a while on a local freight or something, but not too often. So yeah, I just sort of like Cabooses, even though they're a little bit out of my era.
Cabooses are cool because as different as locomotives are, Cabooses are too.
Yeah.
I've not seen, I don't think I've seen two identical Cabooses.
Well, they may start that way, but they're like locomotives. They get, modified over the years. And
yeah, I'm sure they came off a line the same way.
Yeah.
But they're so out of use now, you would be hard-pressed to find two that were the same because they would have been modified or changed or updated or whatever.
And a lot of them nowadays have had all their doors and windows welded shut, and they're just they call them a shoving platform.
Yeah, and they have graffiti on them now too.
Yeah, well, a lot of them, a lot of trains do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, anyway, so that's my story about how I built this car, and if anybody else wants to do one, hey, go for it. It's a lot of fun.
But don't call Dan. He's not going to help. All right. Well, I guess that'll do it for this video podcast. Be sure to tune in to the audio podcast on the 15th of this month. And we will see you next year on the video podcast. Everybody have a nice holiday for Christmas or whatever you celebrate.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks.